this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Get It Right Texoma. Normally, with the trio of Mike Hendren, Terry McAdams, and Trey Serrala.
Yes.
Trey is off on a super secret squirrel mission today.
Last minute mission.
Last minute mission, yes.
He was called in for service.
Yes, he was. You almost make it sound like he's on a military mission.
Well, hey, we don't know. We don't know.
He could be. He is armed.
He dips off on the weekend out to the wilderness of, New Mexico at times.
Yeah, I know.
So who knows? He could be on a super secret squirrel.
He's going off on the in the desert. I got to wonder what he's doing there.
Yeah. But he's not here today.
No, he's not. It's just the two of us and two very special guests with us today as well. Wichita County Commissioner Mark Beauchamp is with us.
Good morning. Nice to be here. Thank you for having us.
And Robin Fincannon. And Robin, explain to people exactly what your role in county government is.
I'm the elections administrator for Wichita County.
See, now that's an important job, especially considering that you've got an election and a huge election coming up. And your job is probably the most important job at the table right now. In fact, I guarantee it is.
And so you're a regular employee of the county. You're not politically appointed or anything?
No, I am an employee of the county.
Right. Okay, good.
She's on the salary.
Yes. And so but anyway, so then, of course, Mark is what?
I'm
what
the county commissioner.
Okay.
Precinct 1.
Yep.
Yeah, we have four precincts in the county.
Every county in the state of Texas has 4 county commissioner precincts. So.
Right. And each county commissioner, as the precinct commissioner, you're responsible for roads and bridges in your district.
And a myriad of other things.
A whole lot of other things.
The list never ends.
Well, I've got a question for you that's been going on at least at the city level. I know the city has responded to this, but I know there's some other projects going on. And as far as internet providers, there's been a bit of controversy about all of what the government can do or can't do because of rights of way. Has that been affecting the county level at all?
We do have some right-of-way issues. It hasn't really trickled out that much into the rural areas yet. But, we still have telephone that's kind of taken over or the middle of our right-of-ways, which makes it difficult for others to find space a lot of times.
Right.
It hasn't been as big of an issue for us.
But in a positive note, though, there has been some expansion because of some, at least I'm in Clay County, and we got where we're at, we got Spectrum fiber out there.
Yeah.
And there are other providers in the county, both counties, and I guess Archer County as well, that are laying fiber. So I guess between Centrio and Spectrum and I'm trying to remember the other providers, ComCell, I think it is. Those guys are all putting down fiber in various places. So how's that going? And how do y'all? I know y'all don't have a direct role in that.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of effect in my precinct at least with that yet. Okay. So I'm sure it's on its way.
Where does Precinct 1 cover?
So I go from Clay County to Wilburger County, mostly below Wichita River, and south of Southwest Parkway for the most part. So
okay.
Okay, so pretty good territory.
long and wide, or narrow and
wide territory. Yeah. And so with the election, we talked about that. I want to hit the election real quick here with you, Robin. The election's coming up. A lot of people very concerned about the processes and how all this is going to go and how this is going to perform. And I'm guessing that for some time now, your office has probably been working on preparing for this upcoming election.
Yes. Yeah, we started prepping for all the mail ballots that go out early right after the runoff in May. Mm-hmm. So we've been prepping as much as we can up until a certain point, and you can't prep anymore, and then you just have to wait till everything's done. But we've been prepping for a while.
Well, I have a question because I know it's different in every state. It's different in almost every county in the country, how this is done to some degree. In Wichita County, if a mail-in ballot arrives the day after the election is over, is it counted?
If it is postmarked, yes, you have the potential to have mail ballots that are mailed locally counted the next day, but then you also have up to 6 days after the election for military and overseas.
Is
can be
that
counted.
state law, federal law?
That is state.
State law.
Yeah, that is state.
See, and this is where I have a huge disagreement with that.
A lot of people do.
If I show up to vote in person, and the poll closes at 7 o'clock, and I show up at 7:01, and they've locked the door, and I'm beating on the door, let me out, I want to vote, I want to vote. You're going to tell me to kick rocks. You should have got here
You missed it.
2 minutes ago. You missed it.
Yes.
Well,
But yet, and this is the thing, it's not like these elections sneak up on us.
Right.
We know months in advance. We all do. We all have access to the same information. We know months in advance that an election is coming up. And we know, most people should know by now, you're going to mail something. I don't care if it's a letter or a new car. If you're going to mail something to somebody, you better allow at least several days for it to arrive there. And if it's coming from overseas, you better allow at least a couple of weeks for it to get there. So I just don't get this whole thing about, we get 6 days after an election to still count a vote.
You can request a mail ballot up until October 25th. And that it seems extremely late to me. But
That's
that
insanely
is the-
late.
Yeah, that is
that's requesting. So does that mean
That means we
you
still
guys
have-
mail it out?
we still
on
have to
that
process
day?
it, mail it out. You get it, vote it, and bring it back and get it back to us. Yes.
So from the minute you get a request for that mail-in ballot, how long does it take to process that request and get it in the mail and get it out of there?
If we didn't have backlog, you could do it fairly quickly. But as much as we get per day, we're running about 3 days out right now from the time we get them in till we get them processed, and then we're starting to print ballots and getting them out the door.
So there's that many mail-in ballots going out here?
Yeah, in 2020, there was roughly 4,200, but that was COVID. I want to say we're probably going to hit around the 2,000 mark, I think, probably with this.
Yeah, that's still an awful
How many
lot.
And that's with still up until October 25th for people to submit them.
And how many of those are military that from here that are? Do you know?
I want to say probably 8, maybe, military and overseas.
Right.
Not necessarily just military, because
okay.
you have U.S. citizens that live overseas.
Right, okay.
So I would say maybe around the 800 range, 900.
Okay, so
probably.
not quite half, about a third, or
Yeah.
a little less, a little more than a third. Okay.
Mark, what
Interesting.
role, if any, do the county commissioners play in these county elections and these countywide elections?
Support. We make sure that they have all the tools and everything that they need to do their job as best as they can. So
Yeah.
that's really the end of our job. So
Yeah.
just make sure they have the support.
So how old is the equipment that you're using this year?
Was it 3 years old or? I think it's 3 years old. It's really new.
It's fairly new.
So what? That's all relative, I guess, to the technology and in the industry. Is that 3 years old? That may not be
It
that
is.
old,
I mean, of course, with all the testing requirements that they have to go through, they have to be tested at the federal level. Then
Yes.
again, at the state level, it's a multi-level test. So
Right.
really, by the time it gets through all of its testing process, it's probably outdated at that
Right.
point. But it's
Yeah.
the most
Okay.
modern versions of the equipment. that's
So
available.
in these cases, these are touch screen, right?
Yes.
Or, okay. So if I understand, tell me the process and the fact, I guess, or is it a fact that the voting machines that you're touching, you're actually casting your vote on, are not directly connected to the internet? Is
Correct.
that
They are
correct?
not.
So what's the workflow from somebody, where you guys getting set up, somebody, on election day or election season, and they go in and cast their vote to the day it gets counted, like the ones on early voting, then
Right.
the day of voting, and then when everything's counted, and all that. What's
Right.
that process look like?
Once we load all of the equipment with the election, the only thing that has internet is the poll pads, and the poll pad is what you check in on. So that's replaces the old roster that you used to sign in on. So that's the poll pad. That's the only thing that has internet connection. Next, you go to the controller, and the controller is what issues you your little 5-digit code. So when you go vote, you put that in, and then you get your touch screen. You make all your selections, your ballot prints, and then it goes to the scanner. The scanner feeds your paper in, and it saves that information on basically a V drive. Okay. At the end of early voting, those scanners are sealed up. The V drive is not removed. The V drive stays in that scanner, sealed up until election day, and then we break the seals and then pull those V drives out. That's when we go to read them.
Okay, and then that's the count. That's the actual
results.
The the initial count,
Yes.
unless there's some sort of challenge, at some point you could have to go to the paper ballot.
And you could go to the paper ballots, correct? Yes.
And that's the beauty of the new system is that we do have a paper
do
ballot
have
that
a-
goes along with it.
Right.
It's held and secure.
So what you used to punch on is being generated by the touchscreen device
And
and,
you get
prints
to
it out.
you
And
get
you
to
can-
physically review your ballot
Right.
before you feed it to the scanner, and it doesn't scan code; it scans the English language that's written typed out. on it.
Yes, I will tell you that if you take your paper ballot, if you got your paper ballot and let's say you put and I've tested it, you put a mark through somebody on there, it will not read that paper ballot because it is not the same as what was printed because it has been altered from the time it was printed to the scanner. It won't read it.
Okay, so it actually looks for any
Variations or
the equivalent of hanging chads.
Hanging chads,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Sort of.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, that
Oh,
debacle.
yeah.
But,
well, that's why we're where we are today with some of this stuff.
So there is I'm in the technology world, and there is an initiative that's out there, and I honestly haven't looked at it in a while, but there's an initiative for what's known as open source software, which drives elections. There is software out there that, and if you don't know what open source software is, it's basically software that's been written cooperatively with a bunch of volunteers usually, although there sometimes is a monetary function there that basically is being funded, but it's open source, meaning anybody, in theory, we could go look at it. Of course, I'm not a programmer. I assume y'all aren't programmers. That we could look at it and look at the source code, or have someone who actually knows how to look at source code, and they can say, wait a minute, and analyze it and raise a red flag on it to say if there's an error in the code. Where then, if with this current stuff, the way that's being sold, it's all proprietary. There's a certain amount of it. You guys, nobody is allowed, just for copyright laws and trademarks and all that, nobody's allowed to break that code out and be able to look at it.
Right.
So there's that, to me, creates a great opportunity for somebody to take advantage of that system. And so there's an initiative, as I said, that is to try to get at least the software to be an open source project, whereas then the hardware manufacturers are still involved. Obviously, you have to sell hardware. So just something that to throw out there. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, that is basically just Google open source voting software. And that would be something I'd be curious about what that would look like.
And I guess, I understand all that it can be manipulated, but, we also have to do a partial manual count on the back end where we have to physically count every paper ballot on the back end.
It's sort of an audit
And-
type thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we also have a new auditing program coming out called Risk Limiting Audit. And it starts, I think, in 2025, and it's a secondary audit.
Right.
We still have partial manual count, and then we'll also have this other audit, and it is strictly based off the paper copies that are that are submitted.
Well, one of the concerns is that even when it's not, somebody's not going to be outright wrong, or they're not going to be bolden enough in most cases because you just get caught too easy. But they're saying that the concern is that if they go through the process, it'll be subtle. It'll be every other, because so many elections are going to be so close. Like in Wichita County, I think the elections, heavily lean Republican, but there are some places it doesn't. Right. And we may never see it, or at least right now, if there's ever an effort. Hopefully there's not, and you guys, that's your job, is to make sure that doesn't happen. But in other places that, if it's so close, you don't have to cheat completely, just cheat a little bit, if you will.
Right.
And it can be enough to sway the election. So those are some of the concerns. I just wanted to open up that to, because that's what your job, or part of your job is to decide which equipment, right?
Right.
And so if that ever comes up, I'd encourage you to look into it. So.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of consistency, is there, across the state in the equipment? I mean,
there's
somebody
two manufacturers
Yeah.
right now that are approved in the state of Texas.
Okay.
Are InterCivic and
ES&S.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you don't have like 20 choices of
No,
machines.
there's literally two choices right now. So
All right, so some consistency there.
Yes.
But the basic ground rules are laid out by the Secretary of State, right? I mean,
Correct.
that's where all the basic ground rules for all the elections come from.
Right.
And then beyond that, as far as which of those manufacturers. That's a county level decision.
That is a county level decision.
But the processes in terms of how the vote is secured, how the equipment is secured, how the steps that you have, like you just explained, that you go through to get to the point where you're actually counting votes.
Yes.
That's all laid out by the state.
Yes, that is. The machines have to be sealed. They tell you that you have to have locks on them. So yeah, all that is set out by the state.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like, in most respects, it's about as secure as you can make it.
Correct.
Short of someone hovering over your shoulder every second that you're
Right.
I'll
voting.
take this time to brag on Robin. She has done amazing in transforming that office into a modern elections office.
Yeah.
The steps that she's taken now are just phenomenal. So have a very high degree of confidence that what we're doing is correct.
Well, that brings me to another point for you, Mark. What have you seen? You've been on the commissioner's court how long now?
I'm finishing my 8th year.
8th year. Okay. So in 8 years, you've seen a lot of changes, obviously. What do you think are some of the most fundamental changes that county level government has been able to enact and do?
With elections to begin with
Yeah.
is a good one. So when I came on the court, we were still precinct level voting. So means that you had to go to the specific precinct voting location where you lived. Now we are vote centers, so you can go to any vote center within the county and vote.
Gee, you've made it actually easier to vote.
We have made it
wow.
much
Okay.
easier to vote.
Yeah.
Easier.
Yep.
There was a lot of hesitation because it was new.
Yeah.
I was one that voted against it first because I wanted to make sure that we had all the ducks in a row and the state was fully on board with what we were doing. So when it came back around the second time, I did vote for it the second time.
Right.
So it's been a great thing for our citizens.
So what keeps you from voting twice? You mentioned it a little bit earlier. But
The poll pad.
The poll pads.
poll pad. Okay.
Yeah, the poll pads. No.
And what is that? What do you mean when you say what is the poll pad? Is it
It's-
is it a tablet?
It's an iPad.
It's an
Mhm.
iPad.
It's
with,
an iPad
with the software on
that
it.
is connected
Okay.
to the internet. That is connected to our database, and as soon as you check in, we know within seconds that you've already checked in. Well, so does every other polling location
Right.
knows that
So
you've
if
checked
you tried
in.
to go and do it in another place, then
Correct. No,
okay.
no different than when you go check in. It'll tell them if you've requested a mail ballot. I
Right.
mean, it knows
Oh,
all
wow.
of that information. So it's
So you
it's-
really can't make the adage "vote early, vote often" play out for you.
Correct.
The poll pad catches that. Unlike the old fan-fold books.
So is there a backup though? Like if I go, I guess the backup is the paper ballot. So, but you said the V. What is that?
they're little V drives,
V
little
drives.
little
Because basically, it's
USB.
probably a solid
USB.
state. Yeah, it's probably solid state storage inside or a hard drive or something, and then those are
Correct.
plugged into the machine, and it's collecting the votes electronically, and then you take the paper ballot. So I guess the paper ballot is the backup.
Yes.
But in case that something goes wrong with that.
Yes, in
V
case
drive.
something goes wrong with that V drive.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
You might correct me if I'm wrong, but it not only does it digitally counts everything, but it also takes a picture
It
within
is.
the machine, so you can have a picture of the ballot that's been fed through the
Correct.
machine
Okay.
and the digital count. So
Yes.
Okay, but not a picture of the voter.
No.
Okay.
No.
Nothing
No.
nothing tied to the voter.
So speaking of, so there, I didn't realize this, but there's law that states that you can't have your phone out and take
Correct.
pictures of your own ballot.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you can't have electronic devices. So, and a lot of people
Out, anyway.
will want to, especially when there's propositions,
Right.
they'll want to put their notes on their phone. Well, you can't.
Oh, wow.
You can't take your phone in the polling booth, so
But
you
you can
can't.
take phys-
You
can you take
physical
paper?
paper. Yeah.
Oh,
So if
wow.
you want to
You
print
gotta go
something
low
out,
tech.
yeah,
Portion
yeah.
into low tech.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
I know
that's-
a lot of people would take the League of Women Voters Guide,
Right.
and mark
Yes.
it up,
And then take that.
carry that in with them, 'cause it's
So what happened? Okay. So have y'all had any major incidences with people wanting, and they make a big deal out of it?
They do. They get a little irritated because you have to think about just the times. Everybody has a phone in their
know.
pocket, so. Will the state ever change their mind where you can take in your phone? Probably not. But yeah, it is a little frustrating for people because everybody makes notes on their phone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and it's easily, it's in their pocket. So
Okay.
we've had a few people that are a little irritated.
Now, used to you would go into a booth and you would close and you would be inside. They wouldn't be able to see you. But now, see, back in the
it's
old days,
quasi-private. I mean, you
yeah.
shouldn't have
Well, so
anybody
what?
looking
Okay,
at
so
it.
what? what is the prohibition against that? What exactly is the logic? What is the issue if somebody has a camera or their phone with them? What is do you know what? I'm just curious. I don't really understand it completely.
Just from part of it would be that your phone has an internet connectivity, and you're not supposed to really have anything like that in the polling booth. And who's to say that you're not taking a picture of your neighbor when you're walking by, or the person? I mean, we don't know what you're doing with your phone, so therefore it's just
wow. Okay.
No phones is best.
Yeah.
It's a public location, but I'm not here to argue it. I have some like, wow, okay. I didn't know. And I know you didn't make the law, so I realize that.
Mark, aside from elections and the processes and all the great changes that Robin's office has made, the things that have happened, what other changes at the county level have you seen in these last 8 years that you think are just
been tremendous,
fantastic?
We have completely started over essentially with our courthouse and our annex. Of course, we completed the $72 million law enforcement facility, which kind of enabled us to do some other things that we couldn't have done otherwise. Getting that built was kind of a game changer for the county.
Yeah.
Moving the sheriff's office into a modern facility. For more reasons than one, evidence storage being a huge thing that we now have a good modern facility to collect and store evidence correctly the same way we do with ballots now.
Yeah.
So that was huge.
Well, I know I was at the courthouse here a few days ago, and I saw some of the progress that's being made at the 30th District Court, right around the corner there from the DA's office, and it's beautiful. I don't ever want to be the guest of honor in there, but it's beautiful.
But it is. It's unfortunately we kind of jumped ahead of schedule on the 30th a year ago when we had a water line that was cut. Forced us to jump a few years ahead of ourselves and move that into a priority situation. So 30th District Court is being rebuilt. It will be open around the first of the year. We decided to go back and take from the original 1916 courthouse plans as much as we could and incorporate that into the new design.
Yeah.
So the ceiling plan was essentially a copy of the 16 plan.
Yeah.
And modified for the space. It's in a different location. The old 30th District Court was a 30-foot tall ceiling, where the temporary 30th District Court is now all the way up to the 4th floor. So in 1961, our commissioners court decided it was not a good idea to have those beautiful courtrooms again, or the beautiful facade of the building.
Yeah, back in the 60s, I think everybody was smoking dope or something and made all these really stupid decisions.
They wanted to be modern. In their defense, they wanted to be modern, and they decided to take a cheaper route. So for low bid, we got what we got now.
Well, you hit the word there, cheaper.
Yeah.
I won't say which one, but I had a former elected official at the city level tell me several years ago, and he had served in local government from the late 60s, I think, through the early 80s, and he said the driving philosophy then at both the city and the county level was spend as little money as you can.
Which sounds great. We all want to take care of our taxpayers' dollar, for sure, but what's the longevity of that dollar? If we're spending over and over and over on the same thing.
Well, I mean, there's being frugal and then there's being Ebenezer Scrooge, for God's sakes. Right. You're so tight-fisted that the buffalo will mess on your hand when you squeeze it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. I think they went to the extreme, went too far to the extreme.
Right.
On the being tight-fisted in some respects.
Sure.
And I do know you had explained to me and actually showed me some of the architecture that had been kind of butchered
right.
and covered up. And it's incredible. Some of the stuff
Beautiful.
that we lost, some of the history that was lost to those changes back then.
We can't put that back. It would be cost prohibitive to ever put that back, but we can pay homage to it, and that's what we did in the 30th.
Yeah.
It's a special courtroom.
Yeah.
I think everybody in a few months when they walk in there, they'll agree that it should have been done. It's a legacy for our community to have something that harkens back to the original, and will go for the next 100, 150, 200 years.
I'm pretty sure when Judge McKnight walks in there for the first time, everybody's going to be like, "My liege, my liege." It's just that it feels that special.
And it's more than just what the look. There's so much technology in that courtroom, so much security that you don't see. That's one of the driving factors in cost is the level of security in a modern courtroom, the things that the general public would never think of that it's in there that you never see.
And that's got to be one of the big challenges from a structural building standpoint is how do you pay homage to that history and make these things look the way they used to, but at the same time you have to build in all that security and all of those features that make it a modern
we spent
facility.
a huge amount of time and a huge amount of money over what our insurance would cover in fixing the ADA issues.
Sure.
And adding the security details,
Right.
the modern things that have to be in the courtroom, the IT. And, there's so much that's behind the scenes that was not in a courtroom in 1916.
Yeah.
And we did a pretty good job of hiding a lot of that in that courtroom. It's been a fun project to take on from the very beginning. So.
It just in all seriousness, all joking aside, it looks beautiful. And it looks like it has been a lot of work.
For a lot of people.
Detail.
I'll tell you this about everyone that's been involved in that project. They have taken it very seriously, more so than any other project I've ever been involved in. Everyone knows the importance of this and how it is kind of a legacy project for everyone that's working on it.
And make sure they know where the water pipes are.
Yeah.
don't go cutting into something.
You don't want to do that again. No, that was unfortunate.
Oh gosh, Robin, back to elections here for a minute. So with this election coming up, obviously we're expecting. I think everyone's expecting record turnouts. Mm-hmm. Early voting starts when?
October 21st.
Okay, so we're about 3 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
We are. I think all around the country, I think everybody's expecting a huge turnout. This could be a big election for obvious reasons. But on the local level, do we have a lot happening, re-election or election-wise locally? I mean, we know about the presidential election, obviously. We know about all that. But
Right. The only thing we have for local races, the only thing that we have that is a contested race is Commissioner 3, Commissioner 1. The only local ones we have is Commissioner 1, Mark. He is not contested.
What's going to run against him?
Yeah, sheriff, and then tax assessor, and neither one of those are contested. So Commissioner 3 is the only one that has a contested race.
I know the city level races.
And
there's a few,
yeah.
a couple of contested
Yes.
races on the
At
council.
At large,
it's a good race.
Yeah, at large has 3. City Council District 1 has 2. A candidate and a write-in, and then District 2 has 2.
It seems like that's kind of an unusual thing here of late. It seems like for the longest time, city and county level elections, there were no challengers. You almost never had anybody step up to run against the incumbent, and then somebody new would step in when the other guy or gal decided they were done. It seems like it was that way for a long time, and here lately, the last several election cycles, we seem to have more and more people stepping up to run for those local level elected offices. Is that just a perception, or is that real? Is that really happening?
I think it probably is. I think it is probably real, but it takes so much to run. It's
does.
it's a big commitment.
Well,
You're going to run for something.
You have to make your life kind of an open book when you do.
Yep.
You're basically putting yourself out there and opening yourself to sometimes maybe some uncomfortable scrutiny or unwarranted scrutiny on several levels to do that. So it is a big commitment on an individual level to step up and do. I don't care what office you're running for.
Right.
You're always going to have somebody out there that's not going to want you, that's going to oppose you, whether they're running against you or they just don't like you. They're going to say something negative about you. I don't know why they say anything negative about him, but you worked for the city of Wichita Falls for what, 25 years?
34.
34 years.
34.
34. City. Imagine that.
Well, well, when you say that, though, I'm going, wait a minute. This year I was retired from the Air Force 20 years, and I was in the Air Force for 20 years. Yeah. They're 40, so I'm in my second career. Yeah. And so, God,
obviously both of you have a heart for public service to be doing this. You have to to do these kinds of jobs. Even in your position, not being an elected official, you still come under scrutiny, don't you?
Yes.
There's still people that come at
Probably
you
more
sideways.
so for her than the rest of us combined.
Yeah.
Well, because she has to go to an office every day. I mean, you have an office too, I guess.
Yeah, I have
but
an office
But
too.
you may be, I don't know.
I'm in there for 8 o'clock every morning.
Right.
Probably don't stay there for very long because I'm up around moving to all the different
how
buildings.
close are you to the upfront office when you walk in, like a customer service counter type?
I'm not.
Yeah. So, but y'all have a customer service counter or not?
We just have an office.
An office,
It's
just walk
open.
in.
Anybody can walk in. Yeah.
Okay.
But my door's always open for
Right,
anyone
no,
who wants
of
to
course,
stop by.
yeah.
But at least I have somebody to stop them before they get there.
I was going to say, it doesn't matter when you serve in county government, city government, any level of government. Everybody's their own complaint department, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're going to catch it from somebody somewhere.
And I'd rather it be that way. I'd rather someone come to me face to face.
Yeah.
Come to my office or call me on the phone.
Right.
Than to go out and be a keyboard warrior and say things that they have really probably no idea about what they're actually commenting on.
Yeah,
or
often-
very little.
Well, we hear about that all the time. I'm sure you run into it as that. Well, why don't you do anything about the schools, or why don't you do anything about what blah blah blah? What name it? And it's like it's not even within your purview because they don't even understand the process. Ask the questions.
Well, I saw a post last week. If y'all wouldn't have spent $1 million on that courtroom, the city employees could have got a raise.
I tell you what,
That hurt my head.
Hand to God, I'm not making this up. Probably 4 to 5 times a year, I find myself having to explain to someone very slowly, as you would talk to a 5-year-old, that all of these different government offices, county, city, school district, these are separate legal bodies, separate budgets. They don't intermingle budgets. Legally you can't. You're totally separate entities with separate budgets and separate decision-making bodies. You're not connected. The city doesn't own one damn school building, doesn't control one. No. The county doesn't. The city doesn't control the county roads. The county doesn't control Camp Boulevard. I mean, they're just totally different bodies. And I find myself 4 or 5 times a year I have to explain this to people, that's how it works. And they look at you as if this is the first time they've ever heard this. There's this disconnect out there in the public realm about how government bodies operate and how the budgets work. And I don't understand.
And we all try to work hand in hand with each other. We all have a great working relationship with our local governments and government bodies.
Sure.
But we don't. I mean, our budgets aren't tied together in any way.
You can coordinate some.
We do.
Paying
Coordinate
for certain things. Say, well, can the city chip in and can the county chip in? Can the school district? However, legally, y'all work that out.
We do a lot of coordination. Mostly in emergency response is the big area that we do a lot of intercoordination with. So.
Right.
But yeah, we're not.
But you can't go write checks on each other's bank accounts. No. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And you don't. The county doesn't vote on building a new school for the Wichita Falls ISD.
It would be like Dairy Queen running out of French fries and calling Sonic across the street and say, "Hey, can I borrow some French fries?" It's about the same relationship.
It doesn't
They're
work
both hamburger restaurants on the same corner.
And I'm sure you guys you find yourselves having to explain this too multiple times to people, trying to make them understand.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to vote. Everyone needs to vote, but I also would love to encourage everyone to know what you're supposed to vote for and know what's in your district. Know where everything is driven by your address. Where you live is what you are eligible to vote for, and I would encourage people to really. Your voter ID card has so much information, what precinct you're in, that's going to be your commissioner, what Senate district you're in. This last runoff was SD 30, and the amount of people that showed up to vote that don't live in SD 30 because they just don't know. I would just encourage people to really nail down what you're eligible. What you're eligible to vote for.
So your office does the elections for who? Everybody?
We do everything in Wichita County.
Including schools?
We do, we do City View, we do WFISD, we would do Burke ISD, Electra ISD, Iowa Park CISD, all of those.
And city?
Then the city,
City?
we do City of Burke, City of Electra, City of Iowa Park, City of Wichita.
Okay, so
and then
when,
Wichita
so this
County.
right now you're going to have all on the same ballot. All
Yes.
these different. If there's probably is there anything on the school? There's nothing on the school.
City View ISD it
Oh,
does have has a bond election.
Okay.
So that brings up another interesting point. How many ballot styles do you think we have?
Oh, how many different styles?
Styles. So
What does
there's
that
not just
mean?
one
It's
ballot.
not just one ballot.
Right, because you have
There-
different versions, right? Because
every-
different where you
right.
are, right?
How
Exactly.
many versions are you going to have for this election? I'm sorry.
54
54
ballot
Yeah,
styles.
54
different.
different
And so when you
ballots.
say a style,
Mm-hmm.
that means what?
For example, I live in precinct 206,
Right.
but I do not live in the city of Burke. So if the city of Burke was on this election, I would have to have a ballot style for 206 city of Burke, 206 county. So that's one precinct, but that's going to be two
'Cause
ballot
they're
styles.
overlapping.
Yeah.
Yes, same thing with there's people that live in the city limits of Wichita Falls, but are City View ISD.
Right.
Well, that's different
Right.
because they're gonna have
Yeah.
a different ballot than people who just live in the city of
that-
Wichita
And,
Falls.
and that's
Right.
really the
Same
only way.
precinct.
Yes.
That's really the only way that you have to break it out that way, so that
have
people,
to.
someone who lives in precinct 2 is not voting for the guy in precinct 1.
Right.
Correct.
So WFISD.
Your boundaries are so important.
Right. Tell me if I'm wrong. I haven't looked at it. I may have looked at it before, but if I'm thinking right, WFISD may cover an area like this, but then you have City View just in the middle of that, right?
City View's over to the side.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's overlapping precincts and
Yeah.
whatever the
Well,
districts. and,
There's
There are
the
streets on
cities
the,
and-
there are streets on the west and northwest side of Wichita Falls where if you live on one side of the street, you're
Yes.
Wichita Falls ISD, but if you live across the street, you're City View ISD.
yes.
Or Burke.
Or
Either
yeah,
one.
or
Or
Burke, yeah.
and then, but then okay,
John
yeah, so
Tower Elementary is a
54
Burke school, but it's in the city of Wichita
versions
Falls.
of ballots out there, basically. The
Yes.
combinations.
That
Wow.
is
That-
driven
again, that's
by
why I
where
say
you live.
she's
Wow.
got a very important and very complex job. So
Yeah, voter registration is the beginning of an election. If your voter registration files are not accurate, you will never have an accurate election because everything is tied to the address.
Right.
That determines what ballots you get. So it is all
If you
about.
don't change your address properly when you move,
Yes,
then-
I would encourage everyone to make sure you change your address
Before
prior
we-
to October 7th.
Before we wrap up, that brings me to one more question for Robin. I know a lot of people are concerned about people registering to vote who are not eligible to register to vote.
Correct.
A lot of there were several years ago there were accusations that were brought to my attention and I brought it to I guess it would have been your predecessor's attention that there were accusations that students were being registered to vote at the campus at MSU who were not legally eligible to be voters in the state of Texas or in the U.S. Period. They didn't have citizenship. They couldn't vote here. Are you seeing much of that? Are you seeing much in the way of fraud at our level here in the county?
No, I have not. Most everybody that registers to vote provides their Texas driver's license number, and when we load it into our system, it hits up against DPS. Anybody who's registering for a license, you have to provide your birth certificate. You have the little star on your license. So anything that we load hits up against DPS. If you just have your social, it hits up against Social Security Administration. So it hits up against both of those systems. Now, we do have people that will fail out, and it's either because they gave us an incorrect number, they transposed their number on their social, something, and then they don't get registered, and we send them a new application, and maybe they fix it, and maybe they don't. But we don't have a ton. But I will tell you how sensitive it is. I had one the other day where on the voter registration application, they hyphenated their last name, which is how we loaded it. It's not hyphenated with Social Security Administration, so it kicked it out because of just the little hyphen. So it's a pretty good system hitting up against the DPS and SSA.
Yeah. I just wish we had as much confidence in everybody else's systems around the country as we do our own here. It sounds like just based on what we hear in the media, it sounds like we probably go to some extremes that others don't, and that's unfortunate. I think
If they could ever come up with a federal voter registration system, would be by far the best, because then you would know, did you move to Oklahoma and didn't tell us, and it would just be.
But there's a lot of resistance to that. Isn't
There's
there?
a lot of
to have
resistance
a
to that.
nationwide.
There is
standard, basically.
If they ever want to really look at the issue with voter registration, that would be, in my opinion, the only way to do it.
Yeah.
because people do move. People move all over.
But then you got to get everybody in every state to agree on what the system should look like.
Exactly.
And therein lies the big problem.
Right.
That's the problem.
Well, just a quick note on that. Government needs to be run efficiently to an extent.
Sure.
Right. Absolutely. But at the same time, don't we want government to also be? Some things I think just need to be hard to do. Because we're spending a lot of money, we're trying to represent folks. So I think there's a balance. Yeah. But I don't want necessarily that everything just get passed all the time, super easy all the time. There needs to be a discussion. Somebody, the one person that needs to hold up the process just to force a discussion sometimes, I think, is good. But, it's a balance, though, as anything else is. So,
yeah.
Interesting.
Well, and as we wrap up here, anything that we have not discussed or talked about that either one of you want to make sure that we hit on today at all?
Not that I can think of.
Not that I can think of.
There's a lot, but that'd take a whole other show.
We could do another 2 hours.
No current thing other than maybe.
I would encourage everyone to vote early. Don't put it off till Election Day. I would encourage everyone to vote early. We do have 6 locations for early voting. All of that is on our website. Mm-hmm. We will have 20 locations on Election Day. That is also on our website. Cutoff for registering to vote or changing your address is October 7th, and then October 25th is the deadline to request a ballot by mail.
All right, so early voting is from
October 21st to November 1st.
Okay.
Including the Saturday, Sunday in between.
Right.
Okay.
And those early voting locations are open weekends, weekdays?
They are open. All of them are open weekdays. All of them are open weekends, and the following week, the same thing.
Terrific.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for being with us. Robin Fincannon, thank you. Mark Beauchamp.
Thank you.
County Commissioner Precinct 1, thank you for being here. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
For having us.
Appreciate it.
Guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Get It Right Texoma. Don't forget to visit our website, getitrighttexoma.com, our Facebook page as well. Be sure to share and like this across all your social media platforms. And don't forget, the program is being brought to you by Eddie Hills Fun Cycles at 401 North Scott, downtown Wichita Falls, eddiehillsfuncycles.com. MacTech Solutions at 4020 Ray Road, Suite 3B, mactech-solutions.com, and Lolly and Pop's Sweet Shop online at lpsweet.com and on Facebook, Lolly and Pop's Sweet Shop. So, thank you again. Thanks to our guest, and thank you for watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, however you get the show. Thank you for tuning in with us. Until next time, take care. We'll see you down the road.